I wonder, in your conversion, if you like, did you lose people? Did you lose any significant relationships? You mentioned that your family were from a lot of different faith backgrounds. Did that cause problems in some areas?
They really respect of my commitment because they think it's for my own good. But I lose friendship from the modeling world because they think I'm no longer fun. I remember.
Was that true?
It's a different type of fun because, for example, I used to love going to a nightclubs with my friends, and I have this idea of like, you know what? I'm not going to get drunk. I love nightclubs because this is the place where I can make fun of people. I love sitting with someone who's sober as well, and the two of us were just like looking at people and just like, okay, look at that drunk girl. Oh, she fall, and then we can just like make fun. Oh my gosh, that guy just got rejected. Ooh, boo, we can just make fun of people constantly. And I love the idea that I'm sober because I can actually see clearly what's going on in the club. After I become a Christian, I still go clubbing, but after sometimes I start to see different things. I no longer can make fun of them because all of a sudden when I see this girl, get drunk and fell onto the ground in the disco, and then when she's dancing, and I just realized like, oh my goodness, if only you know your value, if only you know that God loves you, that He's willing to die for you, to save you, if only you know that your body is a temple where you worship God, you're going to value it even more than this. And then all of a sudden, I started to have this compassion, and I cried in the club, and I said, like, God, please, the way you have revealed yourself to me, can you reveal to that girl, and to that guy, and to this girl, and to that person? It ended up like tiring, because I ended up praying for many people in the club. And my friend thinks, like, why don't you talk bad? Like, I'm no longer liking gossip. I don't like gossiping people. I don't want to talk bad things about people. I want to see the good in them. That never happened before. I love talking bad things about people. In fact, it's fun. But there's lots of change in my heart that's for people who still living in my old lifestyle. They think like, oh, no longer fun. She's so, she's very careful now. She doesn't, talk bad things. She doesn't make fun of people anymore. I think it's a good thing. So there is a selective friendship comes in that relationship as a Christians. I want to be friends with them, but they choose to just hang out with different people.
So do you think being a Christian and a model is compatible? Because there'd be a lot of people who had jobs maybe similar to modeling where they might question whether they can be both, I suppose.
Yeah, I really think so. I remember a pastor told me that, Tracy, your mission field, God called every Christian to be in the world, but not of the world. So it means that your lifestyle shouldn't be the same like everyone who doesn't believe in God. But you should, we call it, you should be light in wherever you are. And in fact, like the mission field or the place where we're supposed to glorify God or we're supposed to use our potential wisely is a marketplace. And I remember going back as a model, and I know that there is a boundaries because, for example, I don't do nude photo, I don't do this, I don't do that. So that's the boundaries I keep.
You always did that before?
Always, yeah. I don't know why. I mean, it's weird because my family are from Brazil and Bali, we're so free in that lifestyle. But there's something within me just guarding me from like not doing that. But even more as a Christian, that there's things that I don't want to do, but I would love to honor God through this work. And I met so many people who end up actually, people wondering like, why are you so nice? Why are you doing this? Like, why you walk the extra miles? And they say like, oh, because the teaching of Christ, because the teaching of Jesus in the Bible actually taught me to do this, to forgive, to help, to be generous, to all of these things. And they actually be able to glorify God or like honoring God with their lifestyle. And I think, my mom says this, you used to be model for elite model, now you're model for Christ. That was her line. She's not a believer yet, but that was her line. And she said to me like, go and glorify God beautifully. And I believe that everyone, mission field as a Christian, is that you glorify God with the talent He's given you. You don't borrow the talent. You use every talent God's given you and use it in a way that will help people to have a better life and to see potential and to see the one who actually give you this talent to glorify God. My favorite verse, if I may say, Matthew 5:16, says this, "Let your light shine before men so people can see your good deeds or your good works and praise Heavenly Father." And I found that it's actually the rules that for every believer, every Christians should apply, that you want to glorify God through your work and using that.
I was interested that you said your mother was not a believer yet. What does that mean? Are you in the process of helping her discover her faith, or is that some kind of a barrier between you?
Yeah, well, my mom would say, I would say she's a nominal Christian, but she's not committed her life to Jesus. And I realized this, for the longest time, Jane, I was in the church as a kid, accompanying my grandma, just sitting there. Never heard the sermon. I'm sitting in the church, thinking about what I'm going to play later, what I'm going to eat for lunch, where's my game, where's my Barbie, I just think about anything else but listening to a sermon. Never heard the gospel, even though I'm in the church. I'm there just to please my grandma, but my mind is somewhere else. There's so many Christians are like that, people who say they're Christian, but they never read the Bible, they never heard about Jesus personally, and they never say sorry for their sin, and they never make recommitment to believe in Him. I didn't realize that there's a difference between those two. You can say you're Christians, or you can say I'm a born-again Christian, or I'm committed my life to Jesus, I trust Him with my life. My mom hasn't made the second commitment. My mom would say that she is Christian, but she doesn't practice the belief that she, that she claimed to have. So what I'm going to do about it, I pray for her. I trust salvation comes from God, invitation given by Him, and I trust the way God has revealed Himself so uniquely to me. I'm sure the same God will reveal uniquely to her as well. But the question is, I hope and pray that she's not going to resist that, because God is knocking on the door of human's heart. Oftentimes we're so stubborn, we don't want to open the door. And I hope that when the right times, God will knock the door and my mom will open that door and say yes to Jesus.
I'll come back to some questions of faith in a little while, but we'll go to some questions from the audience again. There's actually been 2 questions on a very similar theme. Can you speak about body image and how to be content in the shape and size God has given you? And maybe even we could say how to be content in the shape and size one is for people who might be interested just in general, how you become content as the person you are.
Yeah, well, insecurities of body image, it's carried by many people, and I'm one of them in the past. I was so insecure about my body image. I was very skinny. I was maybe 18 kilograms lighter than now. I was very, very skinny. And I always think I don't like being skinny. I wish I can gain, a bit more weight. Then when I started to gain so much weight, I gained 20 kilos. And I started oh my gosh, this is too much, It's just so hard to please humankind, I guess. But one thing that's different with, that the restorations that's given by God is that I start to look at my identity and my body image differently. Before, I'm extremely critical about beauty, about body, about names, about everything. And after becoming a Christian, I just realized that the most important thing is that your body is a temple where you worship God. You don't go to church. You bring church with you as you carry this body where you worship God. And I realized if this is the place where I worship God, I want to take care. I want to worship God longer. I want to honor Him on earth longer. Therefore, I should be healthier. Then I start to be more careful with my eating habit. With I'm so lazy. I don't like exercise, but I have to. And I have a colleague who will keep pushing me to do exercise. And I keep trying my best to just be healthier, walk a lot, and so on, and doing what I love the most. But one thing I realized is that the problem with our self-image, about body image or face or everything that on the outside, oftentimes begins with the heart. It oftentimes begins in the inside. When we're not happy in the inside, even as good as it is on the outside, we'll never see it as beautiful, as good. So I think the problem is actually lay down in the very deeps of our hearts, where we start to actually questioning about outside. So when God started to heal my identity in the inside, then that's the first time I was free to appreciate the gift on the outside.
But when we were speaking a little bit earlier, you were showing me your magazine cover. I think you should tell people that story about how people have a perception of you, the person at least who appears on the front of a magazine.
Yes, just in July, Jane, when I bought this magazine, I asked, when the guy looked at me, I asked, I want to buy this magazine. And in my mind, I was like, okay, one for my grandma, one for my parents, and one for my auntie, and one for me. And the guy just looked at me like, maybe the thoughts like, why do you have to buy 4? He looked at the cover of the magazine, and he looked at me, and it's like, he had no clue that was actually me. And just last week when I was in school, in one of the schools I visited in Australia, I asked the student like, okay, take a guess, who is this person? And she's like, no clue. And then the second thing I asked her, okay, it's me actually. And she looked like really, like in her thoughts, I can totally read her facial expression like, And then I asked her like, how many years ago or how many months ago? And she's like, 5, 10 years ago? And I was like, no, this was taken in May this year. And I just realized that I don't look like this. My hair is thinner, my face is chubbier, and I'm not as skinny as in the magazine. And I think it was in the screen earlier as well. And then this is the things that, lots of people, young people out there, look at the measurement of beauty. When they want to measure beauty, they look at like, I want to look like this person in the magazine. I want to look like that celebrity. I want to look like that actress. I want to look like that person using this product anti-wrinkle. First of all, they're 16 years old, and they model for anti-wrinkle. They have no wrinkle. And second is that every model wish they can look like the way they look in the magazine, because none of us look like the way we look in the magazine. And we wish we can look like that every day. But so that's why like we have this distorted idea of beauty, and we end up looking into media as a barometer or measurement of beauty. But beauty is come from who you are. You're beautiful, you're made in God's image. If you're Christian, you know that. And you are so uniquely you. And the problem, and you'll never will be happy with whatever you are in the outside if you still have, the problem in the inside, And oftentimes, when you start to be grateful for who you are, then the beauty shine, because you know where you're supposed to give thanks to the one who gave you this body, and you're not using it for your own purposes, but you just enjoy it as a good guard, guarding it well and for the glory of God. And for me, that is a freedom in knowing that beauty comes from God, appreciating it, but not abusing it, and use it for the right reason, to honor God.
How would you advise, for example, you go and speak to many schools and you speak to a lot of schoolgirls, a lot of school kids. How would you advise them to treat the messages that they read in the media, and how they would perhaps see themselves in a slightly different light? Because as you said, I'm wondering, that probably took 6 hours, I don't know, to sort of get you into that position, and then the lighting, of course, and all those little tricks of the trade. How do you tell a young person, this isn't really how it is?
Yeah, well, by just putting next to each other, okay.
I don't know. I think it's pretty good, actually. But
thank you. But I would, I really think that so many young people nowadays start to wishing to be somebody else, start to want to be, to have the look, the nose of this actress, the lips of that actress, and plastic surgery is extremely big in Asia. And the age of 13, 14, people already, doing some restructure, changing certain part of their body, of their face. And I think that this is not going to stop until we realize that we are uniquely beautiful. And there's, and when we're not satisfied with the way we look, there must be something going on. It's not on the outside. There's something within us that needs to get fixed. And that's why I closed my line earlier. It was like, he is the great physician. He's the great doctor who has healed me, because I'm one of the patients. I used to think I'm so ugly for the longest time. When someone complimented me, like, oh, you're so beautiful, I'm just like, oh, they're just being nice. And I used to think I'm stupid. And then people say, like, you cannot be stupid and study in Oxford. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm just lucky, but I'm stupid. I constantly saying this, even as a Christian, in the beginning of my Christian walk. And I realized, like, wait a minute, why do I believe in the lie that has been taught in my mind? That lie is just going to make me not appreciating the gift of God's gift. And also that lie is just going to ruin me, because we didn't realize this, that the devil is at work 24/7. The work of devil is using words into our mind and try to make us not appreciating life, not honoring God, not using our full potential for his glory, and using everything to just bring us down, including words. So I would say to young people that, first is that they're beautiful. They're made beautifully by the grand design of the universe. And second, not to compare themselves with any other person, because they're so unique. No one's the same in the world. That out of 7 billion people in the world, no one's the same.
But how did you stop comparing yourself when you were 14?
When I was 14, I don't compare myself much with people, but I think I'm ugly. So my problem is that I don't see the beauty in me. I just see I'm just lucky to work in the modeling world, and people complimenting me is just because they're being nice. But one day, like when I really feel tired of telling myself how ugly and how stupid I am, I pray. And when I pray, something miracle happen. Like there's something just walk out from me. It just feel like a wind blows out from me. It's just, I'm not superstitious, I'm not into this kind of thing. I'm very logical in my Christian walk. But that thing's just, there's something just walk away from me. And ever since that, I never look at the mirror and thinking I'm ugly or stupid. I'm not saying I'm amazing, but never judge myself anymore. Then I realized there's a spirit. I don't want to scare you, but, if you're in the light, the darkness will try to do anything to just distract you. But they have no power over you because you belong to God.
But do you think this is a message that translates to young people who perhaps are not of faith at the moment, who are perhaps still discovering themselves?
Yeah, well, I would say this to Christians, but to a non-Christian, I would say that get to know God. Get to know what the reason he created you. Get to know what's the purpose in your life, what's the meaning in your life. And discovering God is discovering us. Because until we know him, I don't think we'll ever understand us fully. So I would challenge people, even if they're from different faith, like I'm not going to say to them I'm going to push them to read the Bible, but I would challenge them to just get to know God. Pray the prayer I pray, or pray any prayer. God, please reveal yourself to me. Because the moment I realize all of these things, it's when I start to get to know more about God. And for the longest time, I'm trying, this is logically makes sense, because if he's the one who created you, he knows how to fix you, and he knows the reason why he created you, and for everything he's given you. So I think it should begin with the original, with who made us. And knowing him will also helping us to know ourselves better.
I was really interested in your talk when you discussed how you went to a church and saw that all the people there seemed very happy and seemed to be shining somehow. And that set you off on a path to discovery. And you looked at the 6 religions that were around you. Can we go through them perhaps? Just
Sure.
Because other people might be in process of their own search. Would there be Buddhism?
Yes, there's Buddhism, there's Hinduism, Islam, Christians, and New Age movement was very big at that time. And also, I thought if there is no God, then I have to believe in atheism.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's a pretty broad search. How did you go about answering those? I think you initially said that there were 6 questions, but the questions
There's lots
grew.
of questions I asked, yeah. So what I did is that, I put lots of, so this is the, I call atheism is a religion because it's a belief that there's no God. So that I put all this religion next to each other, and then I put lots of questions. For example, I asked who is God? And they all have description of God, and one say there's no God. And then I asked the question about, why we are created in the first place, and then how the world come to place, and then what's the meaning of life, and what's the purpose, and how do we supposed to use our talent, and all of this question about what we're supposed to do to those who hurt us, and like how we're supposed to use our money, how we're supposed to use even the question about our fame, and the question about morality, and all these details. And then morality from God's perspective, like why there's lots of suffering in the world. If God is good, why there's lots of people like this, like that. And then even question from human perspective of ethics, and even the question of destiny. I wonder, like, where do we go? Because eventually we all have to die. And what happened after life? After, what happened when we close our eyes and it's our last breath? Where do we go?
So did you Google this information? Did you speak to people? How did you display the answers? A whiteboard, a notebook?
Yes, I asked lots of people. And if I'm not satisfied with the answer, I ask the same people, different people the same questions. Just want to see the silver lines among the answer they're given. I asked the belief leader, the religion leader as well. When I met my friend's teacher, Islam teacher, in their house, I asked the questions, find out the answer. And I also asked, I read books as well. I go to a bookstore and find out the answer to these questions. At that time, I didn't use Google because it's in the early 2000 and I wasn't really into computer.
Internet connections.
Very slow internet connections. Yeah. So I asked lots of people, read lots of books, and find out from the leaders of the religions.
And how long did that investigation take?
The much more details later on, but 1 year until I make a conclusion that I want to be a Christian.
Because sometimes people feel that they can spend a lifetime searching for true belief and true faith, and yet it evades them. Sometimes it evades them permanently. How was it that, and this is a slightly skeptical question, I guess, how was it that you found what you were looking for? It seemed to be quite a neat path to discovery.
Yeah, I didn't really expect that through my questioning of religions that I finally find the answer a year later. I thought it was going to be a lifetime research, and I'm ready to keep asking until I find the answer. But towards the end of that 1 year, there's something in my heart that just felt warmness that I never felt before. And all the answer from the Christian perspective really makes sense. And it's just so secure to know that God so loved us that He gave His Son to walk the perfect life and to rescue us in the most unique way. For me, the concept of self-sacrifice is never in the picture. It's always about offering of flower, offering of cutting animals, but self-sacrifice is something so foreign to me. But when someone gives his life to save others, for me, it's just like that is just extra miles I never thought before. And that just touched my heart to know someone loves me that much, that willing to die for me. And that sense of love and the beauty of that sacrificial love is just really touched me to the point that I start to be a joyful person, even before I committed to Jesus. And things start to change. The world start to become a better place. Maybe I would call it blessed because it doesn't take me too long to meet the person of Jesus Christ. I know there's so many people that are still searching and still wondering, and I'm dying to know God. And I know that He hears my cry and He listens and He reveals Himself in this way. So I would love, as you mentioned, that in the back before I didn't do my research through Google, but I would love to go deeper and research everything into deeper sense that, for me again to see it. The reason why, I would like to, of my commitment in the past to Jesus Christ.
But you studied theology at Oxford for 3 years.
Yes.
I mean, that's probably a more thorough investigation than most people would take. Why did you feel you needed to go to those lengths?
I want to write books about it.
You want to write books about it?
That maybe it will help people, without, this is the thing, I don't want to, this is investigations that I've done, and I would love to refresh it again, and maybe it will help, just compile that, maybe it will help people as well in their journey of if they come from a mixed belief system, and that hopefully will help them to discover, and maybe they don't have to just trust, believe in my discover, maybe they can actually use that as one of the books that they're actually reading to help them to understand more about faith.
Let's go to some of the questions from the audience again. And, well, this is quite a fun one, so why not? What was your most embarrassing moment on the catwalk?
Oh, wow. Oh my goodness, it's just a flashback right now in my head. I wish I can show it to you in a display, but the technology is not here yet. In the future, maybe. So I was walking at Paris Fashion Week for Yves Saint Laurent, with YSL. And I remember walking the runway, and then there is like a supermodel after me walking, and her name is Naomi Campbell. And she walked beautifully, and I was just like, as I walked back from this front stage, meeting up with her, there's a moment where we're supposed to be going slight little bit so we have more space for our dresses, but we end up actually tripped and fell in the middle of the stage.
Did you trip, Naomi?
Oh, I don't think so. I hope not. Maybe I was starstruck, I don't know, but I hope not. I was so scared, Jane. My feet was shaking, and I'm just like, you cannot walk as a model when you're shaking. So I came to her and just say, I just want to apologize, because that week I remember there's a big news in Paris in the newspaper that she did something bad to other people who work for her, like throwing something or something. So I'm like, oh, I don't want to be thrown. So I was like, before something bad happened, so I better just apologizing to her. She's so nice. She's like, I came to her and I said like, no, Naomi, I'm so sorry. I was like, promise you, that's the way I said. I was so nervous, and she just looked at me like, oh, it's okay, that's fine. And I'm like, okay, but I was stuck there. I can't even move until they said like, okay, supermodel out first. I'm supposed to be in the young models at the back. Supermodel is supposed to be like, all these top models supposed to walk in the front. I end up walking in the front, the third row, because I was stuck there, So this is, Jane, my blessing in disguise. Like, I was among the supermodel, and it was in the cover of like a Hello magazine from France, amongst the supermodels.
So we must be careful never to ask Naomi Campbell what she thinks of Tracy Trinita.
She probably doesn't remember. I hope she doesn't remember.
And this is a lovely question, because I also, I'll ask this question and I'll follow up with my own if you haven't answered it. If you could time travel, would you go back and recommend modeling to your 14-year-old self?
Yes, at two conditions. First, I want to be Christian earlier. Second, I want to save money, not spending it.
Okay, so I guess that's a bit of a yes and a no. Do you ever think of your parents' decision to let you go at the age of 14?
To think how crazy it is, and to read a scary story about someone arriving in the airport, get kidnapped and so on, I'm just like, wow, this is like not that safe. But I think my parents sees the eagerness in me, and I may be unstoppable. So maybe they just like let me go because they trust me. But if I'm the mother, I'll go with my daughter. Especially, I would love to see New York as well.
Another interesting question, which I guess is a bit of a twist on different things, has becoming a Christian. The question is about ethical issues. For example, say a brand uses cheap labor. How would you approach that? I mean, that's a really great point. In fashion today, we know that a lot of clothes are made in an unethical fashion using either environmentally unsafe products or production, and particularly the use of virtual slave labor in some countries. I mean, I know these days you don't work full-time as a model, but do you ever think about that element of the industry, which is, I suppose, quite manipulative of other human beings?
Yeah, well, I look at fashion as a place where creativity just came out from people, and I think that's reflections of how God is a creative God. But in our brokenness, that creativity starts to become a little bit distorted, and people have the idea when it's mixed with when we mix with economy, when mixed with business, and the art itself is become like how we can make more money out of selling these beautiful things, and then it impacting the factory, impacting lots of people because people start to seeing it as like how we can make more money. And I think one of the beauty of the gospel of the Bible is that the social justice is such a big thing in the Bible. You'll be surprised to see how many times that God is always towards people who's broken, who's living, who's the world around them, giving them injustice. And I mean, the social justice in the Bible is clearly that you're supposed to be fair. You're supposed to give the right wages. You're supposed to protect the one who's weak. And you're supposed to be the one who's bringing people with you, like helping them. And even in the Old Testament, there is a part that I was surprised to see, like a big land. And you have to give certain % of that land only for those who's poor, who have no land. They can always take any time they want to eat. And that's a generous gift. I think when the greediness comes into human's heart because of the fallen nature of human's heart, we forgot about those who are in need. We forgot we want to be much more richer. We want to, live in extravagant life. And we forgot that those people actually have less than $1 to spend for 5 people in their house. The moment that when we realize that everything that we have is a steward by God that given to us, that we will be accountable to God one day. I think without that moment, we will never realize that we need to be very careful in how we use our money and how we supposed to treat people around us and worker and everyone, and also to help people to make their world a better place for them to live in. I think I really would love the fashion world to realize that, that to remember there will be kids that not supposed to work, and there will be people who need to get better salary, and social justice is extremely crucial. Until the heart's not changed, I don't think we can actually see that importance.
Unfortunately, time's racing ahead, so I'm just going to ask you one more question, which again is a wonderful question from our audience. What advice could you give to those of us pursuing highly competitive, performance-based careers?
Yes, I think for me, modeling is also higher competitive because you always want to get more what people get around you.
Well, that story about the alarm clock was amazing.
Yeah. One thing that first we are called to give our very best, not to human, but to God. We need to raise our standard higher. We need to do more what normal people will do. So there is a pressure, but it's not pressure that will suppress us, but pressure that liberating us, that we can do our very best in the marketplace where we are called, and also to know that we only need to impress one audience, which is God Himself, and we use every resources to help others and to bring glory to God. I think the liberating part of it is something so unique that really gives such a enjoyment in what we do. The place where we work, it could be the same place where how we actually been working for the past 10, 20 years, but all of a sudden one day our heart just changed. And we start to appreciate this workplace, and we start to appreciate people there. We start to appreciate because we can make a difference in this world. And there's a reason why we are created, because we're supposed to make a difference in this world. All of a sudden, we start to enjoy this work. And what happened? It's the same work, the same people, the same everything. But there's something changed. Our heart changed. We start to appreciate, we start to see it as something that is so beautiful, as given. It's a privilege. It's a place where we can actually use every potential, use the maximum potential we can, give our very, very best. And that is the moment when we being a good stewards of the time, capacity, money, potential to the one who gave us.
Well, we don't have a drop bear for you, but watch out. Just you watch out. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, please thank Tracy Trinita. It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you so much.